So overview of today's presentation, we're going to go over UC versus the Common App and how they both differ in terms of activities, go over different categories of activities that you can report, how to describe your activities, survey, questions, and closing. So today's presenters are myself. Hi, my name is Avdeep. I graduated from Berkeley last year, went to Impact Academy, which is a high school here in Hayward, and I studied political economy, and I will be entering the working world as a nonprofit consultant. And with me, we have Andre.
Hi, I'm Andre Vansons, and I'm the sports editor of the Van Nuys High School Mirror, and I'm also the co-president of the First Empowerment Project VNHS chapter.
How to describe your extracurriculars is literally just about how do you spend your time outside of school. It doesn't have to be like one or two things that everybody should do. It's just colleges who want to know, okay, we know your scores, we know your GPA, we know what classes you've taken. What else do you do? That's it. It's just that simple. It's just describing how do you spend your time outside of school. So here are two different, more common apps that you will be applying to. You'll be applying to the UCs and the Common App for private schools. And these is how they differ when it comes to describing your extracurriculars. UCs allow you 20 entries for activities and awards, both. You could describe basically a lot of different things under these 20 entries. Whereas the Common App only allows 10 entries for activities and activities only. And then they have 5 separate entities for honors, which is where you would put your awards. Little side note, the Common App, when you describe your honors or your awards, you cannot have a description. You can only have a description for the 10 activities. Then for the UCs, it is a 350 character description. What that means is that's only about 2 or 3 sentences that you have to write about an entire year of like a club experience or an entire like 3 years of a student body president experience or whatever it is. Only 2 to 3 sentences. So you have to keep it really, really concise. For the Common App, it's even less. It's 150 characters, which means it's only about 1 really long sentence, maximum 2 short sentences. So you have to get really good at summing up what you've done, and we'll tell you how to do that. But before we do that, here are the categories. In the UC application, when you go to type in your 20 activities, well, first of all, don't type in 20 activities. But when you go to type in your activities, here are the different ways that they're split up. You will have to select one of these to then put your activity under. Awards or honor, educational prep programs, extracurriculars, other coursework, volunteer, work experience. We will go over what each of these means. For the Common App, however, there are many more categories, which is great. Something I want to point out is here, family responsibilities is an activity under the Common App. We'll talk about this a little bit more, but I love that this is the case. Again, it could be any of these. It could also be other. So here's all the categories. We'll be posting this slideshow on our website after this, so you'll have access to all of this information. Here's the activity categories that I was talking about. So you can have an award or an honor. This could be regional, state, nationwide. You will have a chance when you're entering an award or honor to provide context about how many students are usually apply or earn it or in what time frame. Again, this could be school-wide. This could be your Dean's Honor List, your AP Scholar Award. This could be perfect attendance. This could also be, I know some schools do, Science Person of the Year or like the History Award. List out all of those in the award or honor. Then you have educational prep programs. If you've been part of AVID, Puente, Upward Bound, Gear Up, those will go under here. If your program's not listed in the drop-down bar, enter it manually. Most of the time they will be listed, especially for the UC app. For extracurricular activities, this is your sports, your clubs, things you've been part of at school, your hobbies. Continued participation over time indicates passion and commitment. So wisely select which extracurriculars you want to put in, and put in the ones that you've spent the most amount of time on. More activity categories. So other coursework, anything that wasn't your A through G requirements that you took on your own, out of your own interest and initiative or initiative, can go under activities under other coursework. This could be a leadership course, religion courses, any college courses that you may have taken through concurrent enrollment. All of those would go under this other coursework. That is a category in the UCs and can be listed as an activity for both applications. Then you have volunteer/community service. Again, something that you might have done consistently for a long period of time looks better. But if you have done a one-time volunteering event that went really well, you can also list that. This could be volunteering at a hospital, library, animal shelter, tutoring in your community, any of those. And work experience. If you've had paid jobs, no matter what kind, they are work experience and they will go under activities. Again, if it's something you spent your time doing outside of school, it will go under activities. They demonstrate time management, responsibility, sometimes leadership, and it could be you were a babysitter, you were a dog walker, server, sales associate, retail worker, tutor. All of those go under work experience, which then goes under your extracurricular activities. Some other activities you can mention: self-taught skills. If you went to Code Academy or like code.org and learned how to code outside of school, that's huge, and that would be listed under other activities as a self-taught skill. If you taught yourself a language, you learned to play an instrument, this is a pretty impressive thing to do, and it is how you spend your time outside of school. So it goes under self-taught skills and it goes under activities. Your hobbies can also go under activities. If you spent your time painting, reading, doing photography, dance, skating, you can list those. And other projects that you've done, summer projects, art projects, etc. Really quickly, if you didn't have the time or opportunity to participate in many activities, you should explain why. So how else did you use your time? Was it family obligations, caring for siblings, elderly care, your commitment to homework? All of these still demonstrate how you spent your time responsibly, all the skills that you've learned, and you can still list them as activities. Like I mentioned, in the Common App, there is a section for family, I think it was family responsibilities. So you can list that under that section. And for the UC, you can list it under other. And explain that this is how you spent your time. It is valuable and it is valued. Okay, some other really quick tips. Focus on the quality, not the quantity. This is really cool. Andre found this quote directly from the UC application. It says, we're looking for quality, not quantity, which means that even though you'll have room to tell us about 20 activities and awards, make sure you focus on the ones that are most important to you. Choose experiences that demonstrate commitment, responsibility, leadership, and most of all, genuine interest. So let's break that down. Commitment means things that you've done for either a long period of time or things that you've done consistently. If you put on a fundraiser one year and it turned out to be a huge success, and it was for a cause that you care about, and then you did something else that's related to that same cause, that demonstrates commitment. It doesn't even have to be, you could put on the same fundraiser every year, or one year you could do a fundraiser, and another year you can volunteer for the same cause. Anything that demonstrates commitment. Responsibility, leadership, but most of all, genuine interest. These people want to know that you did these things because you like them, you're committed to them, you're moved by them, not because you wanted it to look good on your college application, which is why don't ever focus on, Don't ever focus on the quantity. Don't put 20 random things because you think they will look good. Pick the ones that you were genuinely interested in, that you demonstrated a commitment. That's quality. And then also really quickly, pick activities that establish a persona. So if you love sports, that's absolutely great. But if there's like, let's say like 4 slots, instead of filling in 3 of those with different sports, it would be great if you put in 1 sport, 1 volunteering activity, and 1 other extracurricular that you did at your high school. Talk about who you are. Again, quality, not quantity. I'm going to pass it off to my co-host, Andre, to walk us through the next section.
Okay, so what my personal process is when making just describing my activities is you make a little checklist, and we'll exercise this later. So make a list of all your activities and passions, whether it's on a Google Doc, piece of paper, and then you have to ask yourself, what did I do? What did I learn? What did I demonstrate? And what can I brag about? It's always about humble bragging. You want people to know that what you did actually had an impact and it wasn't just a small thing on the side. And when you write about it, since you only have 1 to 3 sentences, keep it short, but keep it powerful. Next slide. So some tips for writing is, as I said, you need to put your impact first and then your actions. So because you have such a limited amount of space, you want the colleges to really know that this is what you've done, that like what you've done is important. You need to quantify things. You need to add numbers. If you add numbers to things, it may be hard to put it. Like you might not be able to think about the numbers, but you really want to try and think about what numbers, as the example say, grew the South Asian Club by 50% through new recruiting efforts, and you raised $600. That $600 might not sound a lot, but for just a school club, that's a lot of money. 50%, that's a big number, and colleges see that, and they're like, wow, this person really put in the effort, and they're trying to do something with their time. Next slide.
I just actually really quickly want to point out the 50%, it is you quantifying something that, let's say you become the president of a club, and when you started out, the club had 10 members, and when you ended, the club had 15 members because you recruited 5 new members. That is you having grown the club by 50%. It could be and all of you have done these really impressive things. You just have to learn how to quantify them so that they sound just as impressive as they actually are. If you volunteered, tell us about how many hours you volunteered for. Quantify impact first, then actions. So move on, Andre.
So these are my personal entries for the same activity in both the Common App and the UC applications. So as you can see in the UC app, you can fit a lot more about the activity. And my suggestion is honestly to start with the UC app and then condense what you said for the much shorter Common App. As for quantifying time, it asks you how much time you spent a week and how many weeks per year you spent. So that is the easiest place to put the time. Really what you want to do is you want to put what you did, how you did it, what the achievements that you got out of that were. As you can see in my UC app, I joined the Mirror in my junior year as a staff photographer and a sports analyst. So you give some context, and then you say, or I said, as a staff photographer, I took initiative. So once again, leading up to it, by taking inventory of and creating an organizational system for our equipment. That's the impact. And then because of what I did, due to my leadership skills and work ethic, you want to use those keywords that make colleges, because they use search engines, they really just, they look at your app and they just look for keywords. They're like, this person did some things. So due to my leadership skills and work ethic in my junior year, I became sports editor and head of the sports department in my senior year. That is very important to say those things. You really want, as I said, to like humble brag. You really want to sell yourself. You're just making an advertisement for yourself for the college. For the Common App, it cut off, but in my junior year, I created an organization system of photo equipment. So I had to take everything I said in my UC app and make it shorter. That was the hardest part for me, just condensing everything, once again, that's where the checklist really comes in handy, because you want to have a good idea in your head before you even start. So more tips. You don't want to repeat the role in your description. You don't want to keep saying like, oh yes, as I did this because I was this, I did this because I was this, because it already says that. Once again, search engine, you really have to make those 350, 150 characters really count, because that's not a lot of space. Use active verbs: coordinated, advertised, marketed, developed. Those are key. You want to check for spelling, grammar, and punctuation errors. That should go without saying. And don't repeat the same verbs.
Yeah, by don't repeat the same words, you just mean like if you have 5 activities and on all 5 of them you designed, maybe use a different verb for that.
So we're going to take a pause from the slideshow real fast, and I'm going to ask of Deep what she did in high school, like a activity she did, and we're going to show you guys the writing process and just how you really sell yourself and what you should be doing in your head. So of Deep, what was one important high school experience or activity that you did?
I was the ambassador for my school, actually. Yeah.
And what is a student ambassador?
So my school was not it was not a public school. It was a charter school governed by a larger nonprofit. So we had student ambassadors from the school who went and talked to donors to donate to the nonprofit and to donate to our school, basically. Yeah.
So you'd say that your lasting impact was that you assist and bring capital to your school by just like selling your school, basically?
Yeah, basically.
So that is a really good start. Just once again, in that pre-write, you want to write those things down. Have a little paragraph that you can cut down, choose parts from. Like personally, how I would sell that is I'd say I assisted in bringing capital to my school by presenting the merits of my school to donors. So you really want to bring those key words in. The keywords: assisted in bringing capital, money to my school by presenting the merits. Big boy words, okay? You really want to sell yourself. And to donors, you don't want to just say to rich people. You want to say to donors, okay? Or to whatever, to staff, the admin, your principal.
Andre, I love that. Thank you for, I mean, honestly, if I was doing my app, I would definitely I would use that exact thing. So Andre really just understood, I said, what I said could have been a paragraph. What Andre summed it up to be was probably under 150 characters, and it was perfect. And it focused impact first. I brought capital to my school, and then my actions on what I did. We're going to take a risk here and ask you guys to chat us some of the things that you're doing. So go ahead and chat us 1 or 2 sentences about what you're doing. They could be completely random. We'll pick one, unmute you, and ask you to tell us a little bit more so that Andre can work his magic and do exactly what he did with my activity. So we'll take a little bit, just chat your title and what you did to us.
I have a couple. Should we start doing them or wait for them to trickle in?
No, I have one as well. So, Arabi, go ahead and read yours.
Okay.
Pick one of them.
All right. So Harold says activity, yearbook title. Oh, sorry, yearbook title, editor-in-chief.
Okay.
Actually, why don't we read all of them, and Andre, you pick which one you want to work with, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Miriam said, I played basketball for the past 3 years of high school and was able to get on the varsity team within a few months.
Okay, and then Anya says, I started online art classes for kids during quarantine. And Serena says, director of spirit and morale in school, I'm assuming. Megha says, penny wars to raise money for leukemia patients.
First of all these are really impressive.
Yeah, these are all great starts. And once again, okay, let's do, I believe it was Anya's for basketball. And then let's also do, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your name, for the leukemia patients.
So
Okay,
I think it was Miriam for basketball. Great.
Oh.
No worries. I'll go ahead and, Miriam, I'm going to find you and unmute you. I hope you're okay with just chatting with Andre for a little bit. Okay.
Hi.
Hello. All right, so I'm going to ask you to repeat basically what you said, what you did.
So, I never played basketball before, but I was able to improve my skill within a few months, and I was able to make it onto the varsity team when there were injured players, and the coaches decided to give me a chance. So they bumped me up, and I proved to be varsity level.
What year were you when you went into the varsity team?
9th grade.
Wow.
So basically, you just joined the team, you were fresh on, and you just proved yourself to the coach, basically?
Yes.
So what skills do you think really, like, brought you up to being in that position?
I was definitely very determined to. I actually didn't have any sort of athleticism beforehand. I'm telling you, I was not athletic at all. I was slow and big, and I was able to work hard, especially within the 3 months before we actually started playing. I was originally recruited on the JV team, but when we had like quite a few injuries, they needed somebody to be bumped up, so they chose me.
Why do you think they chose you? Because they could have chosen anyone on the JV team. Why did they choose specifically you?
I think I was able to, because I was there every practice. I was there afterwards. I was there shooting my shots. I was there doing everything I could to make myself better, and I know they saw that too.
Okay, so what I've gotten from what you said is that you went from 0 to 60. You came in running, right? You showed that you had determination. You worked hard. You bumped up from JV to V in 3 months. You had consistency. So how I would personally sell that is I would say in well so I got put into the varsity position. This is a very rough draft, but I got put into the varsity position of my high school basketball team by showing in the previous 3 months my determination and consistency by showing up to every practice. You do you have anything else that
I
you want to
think
say?
Andre, you're on the right track. I'm going to follow up on what you're saying because I think you went impact first, which I love. So we're just like brainstorming together. I would say this, I would lead with the same thing, but put the 3 months early. So was promoted from JV to V in the first 3 months of joining without any previous athletic experience due to my determination and commitment to the sport. Or I guess determination and commitment are really good words, but I would want to prove them a little bit as well. Like Andre gave example of showing up. So Andre, do you want to edit mine a little bit?
Yeah, I'd say yours is more or less spot on. You really just want to add those descriptor words because I don't have it written down. I don't know, like, the length, but when you are writing this, when you're putting this in your Common App or your UC app, write it out and then see if it fits. It'll cut you off if it doesn't fit. And if you haven't filled the space, see what you can add. Once again, those big words: determination. You worked hard, consistency. That you proved yourself. You worked in the face of adversity. You have to add all these big words.
Yeah. And what I love about this example is you can say impact first, which was bumped up like super fast. There's a number there, you can quantify it just in 3 months. And then you have your determination, your commitment, your consistency. So you have your buzzwords, which are your actions that you did. Should we move on to the next one, Andre?
Yeah.
I would also add before I unmute that you can show actions, like how you were able to do that by saying that you showed up to practice every day or regularly. You can talk about how often you practice. You can say, I practice for 15 hours a week, which is basically a part-time job for everybody. So being able to demonstrate your commitment, your efforts, your consistency using more specific tasks that you took on, like working out or showing up to practice regularly every week, things like that. But that's a super impressive experience. You just have to take it to the next level and show them how impressive it actually is.
Actually, can I add something? I don't know if I should add this, if I have room to add it, but like before I went to try and join the team, I'd like sprained my ankle really badly. But I went in there, I couldn't try out, but I had to like heal from the ankle injury. But at the same time, I was like, it was still hurting while I was still practicing.
Go ahead, Avdeep.
Okay. I think this is like a story of like real inner strength and commitment and determination. And it's so wonderful that I'm not sure I want to condense it into just an activity. What I mean by that is, in your activity, write down that one sentence of how you got bumped up and how you played for 3 years, and that's great. But definitely touch on this specific experience and how you didn't have athletic experience and how you couldn't try out because of your ankle, and you tried out even while it was just healing, and then you were so determined, you practiced so much that you were bumped up to varsity in 3 months. That is a really good personal statement. That is a really good essay answer. So I'd put it there, and then in the extracurricular, I'd just put the condensed version, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I 100% agree. I was just going to say the same. This is, you said all of that. I was like, that's an essay. That's not even a 150 character activity list. Honestly, that's good enough to be an essay. And you should definitely look into which one of the 4 UC prompts will allow you to make that an essay. I would say either the challenge one or the leadership one. Although I don't know if this would be necessarily leadership, but like an activity that you took on. It could go in a lot of different places, but definitely. Hopefully this was helpful.
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay. Next was Megha, who mentioned that, what was it? Sorry, let me look through it really quickly. Penny wars to raise money for leukemia patients. So Megha, I'm gonna unmute you and you can elaborate a little bit more.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
So I was in 10th grade and 11th grade, we did both years. We conducted a penny war to raise money for leukemia patients. So we gave box to every class, and whichever class got the most penny will win the competition and would get a prize. And at the end, we donate all the money to leukemia patient by our school.
So how much money exactly did you raise?
For 10th grade, we were able to raise $600. For 11th grade, I was unable to count because of coronavirus and the school shutdown. So we're not able to count all of it.
Do you have like just a very rough estimate?
I think we were still able to do like $600.
Perfect. So, what was your personal motivation to just have this penny war happen in the first place?
So actually my sister's teacher, who she really liked and we talked a lot, had cancer and she didn't survive. So I was really wanting to do that because of that.
Okay, so what I'm thinking right now, just a very rough thing is, you know, you have the, okay. I raised over $1,000 for leukemia patients by hosting a penny war in my school, or by hosting a fundraiser. That is probably better to say than a penny war, because the college might not know what a penny war was. And It depends, of course, on region of the college, especially in Common App. And then you might want to mention about that family impact. You could say something like, motivated by by the tragedy of the passing of someone close to my family.
Yeah.
I held a fundraiser that raised over $1,000 for leukemia patients. Of Deep or Robbie, anything to say?
So I think I love that you started, well, yes, I think you can mention the tragedy. I also liked your first suggestion, Andre, which was that you raised over $1,000 as like the first thing to say. You could also add, just something to add is you could add what you actually did. So when you say fundraiser, it's vague, and penny war is something that not everybody knows. So mention a little bit of activities, because that required coordination, that required communication skills. So raised over $1,000 for leukemia patients by organizing a penny war, communicating across the school, organizing different classes. So those action verbs that you actually did that resulted in the $1,000 being raised.
Yeah, all of that. And I would add maybe mentioning if you know how many students participated in the penny war, right? If let's say 200 students did, that's really impressive that you were able to coordinate a fundraiser that 200 people participated in. And if it's kind of like an estimate, I think saying over a number also sounds pretty good. Like if you can say over 200, then that, it's like, okay, there's a number there, but it's more than that. So it kind of leaves it out in the open what the number actually is. Yeah, as much as possible, be specific. What kind of fundraiser? How did you do it? Who was involved? What action tasks did you take to make it as specific as possible? Because yeah, penny war, people might not know what it is. So you want to really paint a picture in their head exactly what you did.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right.
And also great job on raising all that money. That's great.
Super impressive. All right. So we have a question. If I've had multiple leadership roles that were different from each other, but part of the same activity, should I only talk about one of those? I had a new leadership role every year. I think the student is saying they were promoted every year, but part of the same activity. What would that look like?
I think that, again, you only have a few limited amount of spots. So make that if that activity is something that's overarching in your life and it is mostly what you want to talk about, you could do 2 to 3 with different titles. What I would recommend instead is use those slots for other activities and use your most recent title, which is your most, I'm assuming, most impressive title because you were promoted. So if you were president by the end of it, use president. You can say 3 years, and in your description, you can make it clear that you weren't president for all 3 years. Let me see, how would you say that in the description? I guess you would say something like, maybe one big action. So, if you increase recruitment or if you fundraise, say all of that as president in my final year of participation, so that people know that you were only president for 1 year, even though the activity timeline says it was 3 years. So making sure that you're not lying technically by putting it in your description, but use your most recent title. Any other advice from anyone else on that specific question? And actually, I'm really happy to take, Andre and Arabi are very happy to take more questions. But right after we ask you a favor first and tell us tell us how we're doing, how was this workshop, please go to this URL, tinyurl.com/firstinSummer, take our survey. We'll wait a couple of minutes and then we'll launch into more questions.
Ooh, we have a really good question after this.
And yeah, keep sending us your questions. Make sure you chat them to Arabi, Kamal, or Andre. I'm sharing my screen, so I'm having trouble seeing them. Oh, okay, I'm seeing them now, never mind. So just a couple more minutes, just have the survey open, fill it out as much as you want, and please submit. We really appreciate your feedback. Tell us what we can do better. Tell us what you liked most. And also thank you to everybody who chatted us your experiences. I know we only went through a couple, but all of them were really impressive. And thank you so much for being willing to share. Okay. Let's come back. If you're filling out the survey, please continue to fill it out still as we take some questions.
So first I want to just finish answering Gassia's question. So when I personally know you, and I know that you're in JRTC, and so when you're speaking about that, as Avdeep said, you want to choose one position and you want to choose your most important one, but you don't want to gloss over the fact that like you did other things. I feel so. I'd say like I don't know what you've done, obviously, but if you can say like I was team leader, which through my leadership skills of being a team leader, I got promoted to XYZ. So you want to mention but don't linger on things. You want to get to the point, but as we've said with everything, say the impact, say before, after, final result.
Awesome. Okay, so I will go through some questions now. Athena, first Celine had asked, I've heard that attending protests would be considered community service. Is that true? I think so, yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes.
Definitely.
It is something that you're spending your time on. It demonstrates what you care about. It demonstrates leadership. It demonstrates speaking up. And if you invited your friends to go to that protest with you, it's civil action. It's an incredible thing to do, an incredible experience, and you should by all means list that.
When you say that you were attending protests or demonstrations, highlight what the end goal is. So if it's for example, BLM protests, right? The end goal might be to bring systematic and meaningful reform, right? At the local level. If you're protesting outside of City Hall, asking the mayor and city council to defund the police and fund other healthcare services, say that. That's the goal here. Don't just say I attended these protests. Say I participated in these demonstrations in order to, and then fill in what the end goal is for you, right? And what the end goal is for BLM and these protests in general. So that's how you would make it more impactful, by bringing in the change that you hope your action will bring. All right, so the other question was from Athena, would building things count as summer projects?
Building what?
Yeah, Athena, if you want to clarify, but in general, if you're, I'm going to just pick examples of what building could be. If you're kind of like, this is like an architecture project, or like you're building.
I think Athena's ready to clarify if you want to unmute.
Yeah, go ahead, please. Oh, I'm going to unmute you though. Are you unmuted?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So most recently I built a bookcase. It's actually right. Never mind. It's right there. I built a bookcase with my grandpa. I built this thing which is called, I built a contraption called a cupcake car, and gone to a maker fair, which is this giant exposition for things that people have built. I've also been working on restoring an old car, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
That definitely.
I think the distinction, so I just want to make a quick, first of all, that's super cool. That's super unique. Absolutely, you should put that in there, Athena. But the distinction between what Athena is doing, where she's built multiple things, she's gone to a builder's expo, she's clearly involved in this. It's a hobby. It's something that demonstrates more about who she is. That's different from you building one desk for your room. That probably wouldn't count as an activity. For Athena, it's an interest. It's continued commitment.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely think that because you were able to go to the Maker Faire, that's showing that you're trying to take yourself to the next level. You're trying to take yourself from just something that you do at home on the side. You're trying to, once again, sell yourself. You're trying to, whether or not it's to build a brand behind yourself. You're doing something. You're taking yourself out in the world, and you can sell that in so many ways. Whether it's just commitment to something,
And thank you for bringing that up. I think it's very unique.
I have more questions. Thank you, Athena. Thank you for clarifying. But yes, super impressive. Make sure you mention the expo in your description that you took it there, because that really sets it apart. All right, so Harold's asking, how could we incorporate taking summer college courses for the activity? How would a description look like?
I love that question. Really quickly want to show you that on the UC app, educational prep programs and other coursework, so other coursework specifically, is a category in terms of activity. So your college courses would go under other coursework here. And I haven't done this, but let's take a look and see if something similar is here in Common App. I guess you would put it under other club/activity.
Common App might also have its own section for dual enrollment classes, like with your APs. When you list your APs, it might also ask you to do your community college classes. So, but there's definitely a place, because all schools ask for what other classes you have taken other than your high school classes. I would also say a description might just be what class you took. So an example would be Sociology 1, the name of the class, Introduction to Sociology, like list the entire class name. And if it asks for a description, then you can say what you've learned. So for sociology, you could say, I learned the major theories of sociology, such as blank, blank, blank. Something very brief. They know what sociology is. These are college, like they work in colleges. So you should be okay.
I think just the fact that you're taking college classes as a high school student also demonstrates initiative. So if it wasn't a program that was like offered to you through your high school and you independently went to your college and was like, I want to do this, or if it was, even if it was a program that was offered to you in your high school, but only a few students chose to take it, mention that. That's impressive, was one of the 5 students out of my 100 student class to enroll in this program, or independently went to our local community college and enrolled in this class. And so speak about your initiative and then do exactly what Arabi said, mention what you learned.
All right, next question. Serena asks, what would be the right way to state that I'm in many clubs with positions? Thank you. Many clubs, as in like separate clubs. If you are heavily involved, as in like you're consistently involved in these clubs, each club could be its own like little slot, right? Like you could make that into a position and list your newest position. So whatever you're going to be this coming fall semester. I would say if you're involved in a ton of clubs and you don't have that many spots, select the ones that are most important to you, that highlight your positions and what you have done most, not truthfully, just like it shows the most investment of your time. Anything else, you guys?
Yeah, I want to come back to the quantity over quality thing, because I'm definitely the person who likes to get involved in many, 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 many things. And I want to be like, look, I've done all of these things. And I want to tell you now that like on the other side, what matters more is if you've done something that's really cool for 1 or 2 things than doing 5 or 10 things. It's amazing that you were able to time management. I think that speaks to your time management. So list them out, but pick, if you were involved in like 10 clubs, I would highly urge you to pick 5. Pick top 5. And in those top 5, focus on what you did. So if you assisted in fundraising, if you assisted in recruitment, if you assisted in marketing, if you put on an event, so focus on those action items within those positions instead of listing out multiple positions in multiple clubs. Because just listing out positions, I as an admissions rep don't know what you did. Whereas if you were to pick 4 to 5 of them, or 2 to 3 of them, and tell me like, this is my impact that I had on these clubs, that's more impressive.
Yeah. All right, so next question, let's see. Anya asks, could I write about piano as an activity, but I did it more for myself, though I did get a couple of awards. You got awards. That's where you set yourself apart. Even though you did it for yourself, you do it well enough that someone was like, they're good, I'm gonna award them now, right? So you can list those awards. If there's a section that's not academic awards, you can mention that there. That could be or it could be its own activity. You could say, you're a pianist. Is that a real word?
Yeah.
Whatever. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're a pianist. And that you've won multiple awards. Mention how many, and maybe mention the most significant one if you have space.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really transitions from like a hobby to something else when you take it that one step further, like Athena did with going to that fair, like you did by winning that award. Or if you're really like love playing basketball and you organize something for other kids in your neighborhood, like you took it from an hobby to an event. Absolutely. Yeah, just and lead with the impact, lead with the fact that you had those awards, and then talk about how many hours you spent on it.
Okay, thank you.
I see that Miriam has a question as well. How many activities is an average amount, or a good average amount? Does anyone want to tackle that?
As someone who just recently applied for graduate school out of undergrad, I would say that a lot of applications will have caps on the number of activities they can have. So depending on the application, it'd be 5 to 10, and also with the genre. And I would say that you should always, whatever the cap is, that should be your maximum. And in terms of average, I'd say it really does depend on what you do. Again, like if it's something where maybe you're part of this club for like 2 months, maybe don't throw that in if you didn't really participate in a lot of activities. Because again, like if it's not going to add some meaningful context to your application, what is it actually doing besides just creating a laundry list?
Thank you, Kamal. I know we're out of time, but one question that I would like to answer is, or I would like my team to help me answer is, if I took a college class but didn't get good grades, how can I sell that? I think just to start off, you absolutely can sell that. It is still you as a high school student going out of your way to take a college class that is yet clearly above your level. It's a college class and you're in high school. And you don't have to be excellent at it for it to count as an extracurricular activity. I would say, I don't know if, I guess it might go on your transcript and report the grade. That's fine. Put it as an extracurricular activity and talk about what you learned. And maybe if part of that learning was, oh, I learned that I also need to like do better time management or develop better study habits, or I learned that I wasn't prepared for a college class, that shows self-reflection. And I would argue that's a strength. But that's just my opinion. Teammates, do you disagree, agree?
Again, what I like to say is like, you also when you apply for colleges, the point isn't also to air out all the mistakes you made. Like for instance, like for activity, if you're like president of a club, you did some things well, but you did some things really poorly. You can't talk about things you did poorly, but again, you don't need to. And same with the college class where you can talk about it, especially if it's going to be on your transcript. You can mention it within like an additional section, like reasons why you didn't do so poorly. But again, if it's not something you feel totally comfortable with, I would say you don't necessarily need to go in detail. And that's the way that college applications, like, you don't need to talk about things you feel really uncomfortable about.
I want to push back a little tiny bit and just say, although I agree with most of it, I think it's helpful to talk about a mistake if it shows self-reflection.
Yeah.
So if your answer there is going to be most about like, I learned that like these are all the ways that I wasn't equipped for a college class, and now I know to work on that. That self-reflection will probably be a breath of fresh air for the applicant, for the reader, when all they've seen is accomplishments for everything else.
Yeah.
If you passed, you should mention it, by the way. Like that really should, ABC, if that's what you got, go ahead and put it on your application, because if you got a D or fail, it doesn't count anyways. There is no point in that mentioning that, because it doesn't count towards your credit. It did not fulfill the purpose of you taking a college class. If you got it above a C, I think you should mention it.
Yeah.
It will show up on your transcripts anyway, so it doesn't really matter if you don't mention it. Last question, because I know we're running out of time. Would an unpaid internship count as an activity or something else? It is an activity. You can mention that it's just that's an internship, that you were an intern, and mention everything we've mentioned before, what the position was, what you did, highlight the impact you've made, and what specific actions you've taken. It doesn't matter if it's unpaid. Admissions people don't care if you're getting paid to do anything. It's just that what have you done? Have you demonstrated commitment? That's what they're looking for. And I really, before we close the workshop, I really want to emphasize, I know a lot of you have family obligations. I know a ton of you, I've talked to students, and I know you might be working part-time, you might have family obligations, so you don't have time to partake in traditional extracurriculars like joining a club or volunteering in your community or those things, right? I assure you that that still counts as an activity. You taking care of your family and working part-time, even as retail or as a server at a restaurant, those all demonstrate you have more responsibilities than honestly a lot of other students who don't. You can sell that, you can show that you have, you know, good time management, that you're able to hustle and juggle multiple responsibilities. I think that's super impressive. As someone who has sat on scholarship committees before, when I see people do just regular jobs like retail and service, I appreciate it because that shows me they are doing those jobs to take care of themselves financially and their families as well. So I find it super impressive. You should not be ashamed of it in the slightest. Don't be embarrassed. Don't think it's any some way lesser than you joining a club. It absolutely isn't. Okay, those are all the questions. If you have any more, feel free to send them because we'll be here for a little while. Take it away, Avdeep.
So thank you, Rabi, for answering. Thank you, my all team, Rabi, Andre, Kamal, for helping me answer those questions. Thank you, everyone, for your incredible questions. Thank you for attending our workshop. Sign up for our newsletter, go to our website, follow us on Instagram, and send us questions on the email. Kajit pointed out that I forgot to edit the next workshop. So sorry, it is not this one. This is today. Next workshop is Monday, and it is Money Mondays, and it's about how to get start a bank account and get a credit card, and you know, all the good money stuff that's not college. So come to that. Invite your friends. Join the First Gen Club at VNHS if you're interested. But please take the survey and tell us how we did. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Ask us questions if you want to stick around and do that. We'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.